Well, we're starting a brand new week here at Question Time. Good thing is the questions just keep on coming all the time. So, Steve Brennan, what have you got for Joe today?
Yeah, Joe. Question today is, has de-globalization and trade tariffs caused the trade deficit to shrink? And a follow-up on that, what does all of this around the trade deficit mean for DARP?
Well, has the trade deficit shrunk? No. The short answer is no. Um, Tariffs don't have a great history in a lot of ways. They're not real effective. If your goal is to limit imports, then it just doesn't work because people find ways to work around it or whatever the case may be. But the fact is that we've imposed all these tariffs since, I guess, 2016 was when this started with Donald Trump, and it hasn't improved the trade deficit at all. So answer is no. What's the rest of the question? How does it affect what? Oh,
Yeah, it hasn't improved the trade deficit. So the follow-up there was, so a trade deficit that's getting worse. What does that mean for DARP, the dollar and rates paradigm, and maybe we focus a little on the dollar here and what it means for the dollar.
Okay, so let's take this to an extreme. Okay, I do this sometimes because it's sometimes hard to see really what the impact of some policy is at the margin. So let's take it to an extreme. Let's say we cut off all trade. We don't import anything. We don't export anything. So what is that? How much of the economy does that affect? Well, surprisingly, it's almost a quarter of the U.S. economy is, if you add imports and exports together, they're roughly 3 trillion and almost 4 trillion. 4 trillion on the import side, 3 trillion on the export side. 7 trillion out of a $28 trillion economy. That's nominal GDP. You're talking about a quarter of the economy being affected. So that's one thing. First of all, is that, and by the way, you don't know how all these things are going to affect the economy. Theoretically, say, you cut off imports of just, I'm going to pick something at random, maybe not so random, automobiles. For years and years and years, we restricted the import of automobiles here in this country so that people like countries like Japan and other countries could not compete here. You had to buy American. And that was fine until about, I don't know, 1975, 76, 77. You started getting things like the Gremlin and the Pacer and the what was the one that blew up when you hit it in the back? Point is that if you don't have competition, the quality of goods tends to decline, and anybody who bought and drove a car in the 1970s knows that's true. Now, did Japan actually, was that how we improved the automobiles here in the United States? Well, sort of. I mean, they did certainly provide import competition, and ultimately, because of some pressure in the 80s, a lot of the Japanese companies just started manufacturing here. But the point is, you got to have competition. That it improves the quality of goods in a tremendous way. There are also the impact on prices. If we have to manufacture everything here, prices are going to go up. There's no doubt about it. First of all, we don't have enough labor. We've got an unemployment rate of 4%. If you want to start making TVs in the United States again, or start making blue jeans in the United States again, you're going to need a lot of people, and we don't have the people. But assume we could, I don't know, import enough people to do the job of people that are overseas right now. Even then, you're going to have to pay them more because we've got rules here that say that you've got a minimum wages and all these things. There's hefty minimum wages. You have to pay people here. You can't pay them like you do in China, where it's dirt wages. But anyway, my point is that the impact on the economy, if you were to cut off trade completely, is huge. And by the way, there are things that we don't even have here that we have to import. There are critical things that we need that we don't really, we don't get any place except for imports. Part of that is because of policy. A lot of rare earth metals, for instance, we don't mine here because of the environmental impact. Now there's talk about, well, should we do that? Should we start doing that again? Because we did used to do that here. We just stopped it because we didn't like the pollution. So let's go back to the idea of how does this affect the dollar and how does it affect interest rates? Well, if it raises prices, I can almost guarantee it's going to raise interest rates. So raising tariffs has a direct impact on prices because you put a tariff on something, it's tax. And somebody's got to pay the tax, and the person that pays the tax is going to be the person that buys the good, whether it's a company or an individual. So prices are going to go up, and I would assume, too, that in some ways interest rates will go up. Now, look, if you cut trade off completely, you end up in a Great Depression because everybody in the world cuts off trade then. There's no such thing as, oh, we're going to do tariffs and nobody else will, because everybody retaliates. So I do think that you would see higher prices, you would have higher inflation, and you would see, I would assume, higher interest rates. The problem is that you wouldn't have a higher dollar, and because you would cause the dollar to fall. So think about this. We have a huge budget deficit and a lot of debt out there, right? 100% of GDP, basically. So roughly $30 trillion worth of debt. Somebody's got to buy it. A lot of the people that buy it are foreign governments or foreigners in any shape or form. Look at a lot of Japanese investors, individual investors buy U.S. Treasuries. Why? Well, because the JGB pays you, less than 1%. You can come here and get 5% on a T-bill. So pretty obvious what Japanese people are going to do. So what happens if you cut off trade? If you don't export, if you don't import, the one thing that you don't export, which is probably maybe the most important thing, is dollars. So if they don't have dollars because they didn't sell anything to the United States, they can't buy treasury bonds. So somebody's got to buy them. So what happens if you cut off trade? If you really are able to shrink the trade deficit, in fact, shrink export or imports is really what everybody's talking about. You shrink exports, you're going to shrink the ability of everybody in the world to buy treasuries, and it's going to be on us. I think that if you were to really accomplish what a lot of the politicians think they want to accomplish, you'd end up in a world of hurt. You'd have a lot of inflation, not as much growth, and lousy products. It doesn't sound like a very good outcome to me.
What questions do you have for Joe? Put them in the comment section down below.